Hello everyone, it's been a pretty blah few weeks for me, so here's hoping doing some talking will help to cheer me up. This is gonna be a long one, I have a lot to say. And I realize staring at this goofy crazy face while I talk is gonna be a little distracting, but we'll just have to put up with it. Anyway, today we're going to create an alternate universe female-gendered counterpart for Tyrian Callows. The design for this one was a little challenging, mostly because the original is... well, have you seen it? I like Tyrion as a character, but his design feels like multiple layers of failure and carelessness. The most glaring issue is that it contains no purple. You know, like his namesake color, Tyrian purple. Before he gets his robotail, there's just nothing, and worse than that, there are barely any other colors either. For some reason, someone decided to make up a new character for the color show, and cover him in so much white and brown that he reads as monochrome, even though he has a color in his name to use as design inspiration. It's just so sad. Anyway, once you get over that, you get to the deeper issue, which is that his outfit is everything about it feels kind of pointless. He's got those straps on his chest. Why? They look like suspenders, but they only connect to his belt on the front side of his body. On his back, they fuse into this little lump thing. Why? What is that? What does it do? To give another example, his boots. Most of the belts and straps are on the back of his legs, the opposite of where you'd usually put belts and straps to secure shoes. I wouldn't mind that, except for the fact that on the front there's just nothing. An empty space, with some floating silver knee pads slapped on top. It feels lazy and unbalanced, and ensures that the actual points of interest are almost always half hidden or completely out of view. Like, if you look at the design in macro, it's okay. It has color balance, the dark stripes over the light parts of his body form a nice cohesive pattern, but that's like first draft material. The next step would be to take those basic shapes and make them into actual articles of clothing that say something about the character, or at least things that look cool and draw your eye. And I feel like the character designer just never got that far. So yeah, I tried to take all that and redo Tyrion's outfit by putting actual purple in it, and replacing superfluous details with things that serve a purpose and express something about her character. For instance, I feel like the crooked laces going all the way up and down her legs help reflect her erratic personality. Deciding on the colors to use was a little more difficult, and part of this recording got cut off, so you won't see me perfecting them, but you will see what I came up with at the end. And now, it's story time. It took me a long time to decide what kind of backstory to create for Tyrion here. Partly because the canon gives us next to nothing to go on, and partly because it would have to be gut-wrenching and violent, and believe it or not, it hurts me to write stuff like that. I feel sad for the characters. So forgive me if I skim over a few of the details. Anyway, here we go. So my idea was that Tyrion spent most of her life enslaved, trafficked from place to place since she was a young child. At one point she ended up working in a mansion with a few other Faunus maids, which was better than the sweatshops or the mines, but they still ended up enduring a lot of abuse, especially if they ever made mistakes. One of Tyrion's responsibilities was to walk the master's dog, and one day while she's doing this, she accidentally nicks him with her tail. And at first she gets really scared, because she is aware that she's a scorpion, although she's never really used her tail for anything before. She has no idea how deadly she might be. Fortunately for her, the dog gets sick and dies so slowly that no one really figures out what happened. She does get punished because she was the last one to take him out, but not as badly as she might have been if anyone knew she was directly responsible for his death. And this gives her an idea. In return for all the suffering they put her through, she decides she's going to try to murder the master and his whole family with her own venom, by sneaking just a few drops at a time into their food and drink. And for a few months this plan works. The family gets sicker and sicker, the youngest child even dies, doctors come and go, but no one knows what's going on. Unfortunately, this actually makes life harder for the maids, because now their ailing masters expect them to do extra work to take care of them. And because they're no longer capable of monitoring their servants themselves, they hire guards to keep them in line. Tyrion realizes that her plan is starting to backfire, so before things get any worse, she decides to up the dosage and finish her victims off. And then, one of the guards catches her taking her secret bottle of venom out of her pocket and pouring it into the tea. She tries to talk her way out of it, realizes she can't, and in desperation grabs the tea tray and bludgeons him to death. Poor Tyrion realizes there's no getting out of this one, so she gathers all the maids in the kitchen and explains everything and suggests that they all run away together. Unfortunately, the other maids think she's out of her mind. They don't think running away will solve anything. Where would they go? How would they survive? What would happen if they were caught by law enforcement and blamed for everything? In fact, they decide the best thing to do in this situation is to blow the whistle and let Tyrian take the fall for the whole ordeal, even if it means she'll probably be killed. Better to single out the person responsible than to risk getting punished for something they had nothing to do with. And so, Tyrian was forced to run for her life all on her own. What's more, soon after she left the mansion, a small pack of Grimm closed in on it and killed everyone inside, launching the incident to the status of urban legend. Every amateur detective and vigilante in the area, as well as law enforcement, was eager to catch the quote-unquote psycho killer, Scorpion Faunus, who committed a crime heinous enough to attract the Grimm, maybe even on purpose. As it happened, Salem was the only one who tracked her down and lived to tell about it, and the rest is history. So what do I like about this backstory? For one thing, it sets her up as a foil to Blake by actually having her live through some of the worst that racism on Remnant has to offer. Blake talks about injustice, but as the daughter of a prominent political figure living in a beach house mansion, the odds are good that she can't really understand it the way other Faunus do. And maybe because of that, she can't really understand why those who react to injustice with violence feel the need to do so, but that's a conversation for another day. Now, secondly, I think the tail end of that backstory helps to use Tyrion's fairy tale inspiration in an interesting way, which I'll elaborate on in a bit. So apparently, Tyrion's fairy tale is The Scorpion and the Frog, where the titular scorpion asks the frog to carry him across the water, and then stings him before they even make it across, so they both die because he just couldn't help himself. Like, that's the moral of the story. Some people just can't help taking any opportunity they can get to hurt others. And I guess technically it's too early to tell, but I feel like in the canon, Tyrion's character is just exactly that. He does evil stuff because he's just evil, and we're foolish to expect any more from him than that. But that's so easy and boring. I prefer a little more creativity. So my idea is that this version of Tyrion learns to play the part of the Scorpion while she's being hunted. Remember, before that happened, she was just a maid, who lived in such fear of her human masters that she resorted to sneaking her scorpion venom in their food, rather than just using her giant muscular tail to slit their throats. But when it becomes a matter of survival, she has to learn to get comfortable with killing people very quickly. And she does this by giving the people what they want. They come looking for a psycho killer, an evil, bloodthirsty Faunus with nothing but darkness in her heart. So she learns to embody that image and use it to strike fear into her attackers while she's still figuring out how to fight. But underneath all of that is a very deep despair. Despair over having to live that way, if you could even call it living, when all she wanted was to be free. Despair over not knowing where her true self ends and where the Scorpion begins, or whether there's even a real difference anymore. And Salem bonds with her over this despair to gain her trust. After all she's been through, Tyrion would probably be glad to see the world come to an end. Which brings us to the larger thematic contrast between Blake's character and hers, despair versus hope. At the end of the day, Blake has hope that things can be better between humans and Faunus, and fights for that change. But Tyrion has largely given up on the cause, believing that there's too much evil in humans' hearts and in the world itself for peace to ever become reality. Racism will never be solved, and the suffering will never end, so they might as well just call the gods down to destroy everything. These stories are all going to be gloomy and depressing, aren't they? I think that comes with the territory when writing villain backstories. Anyway, thank you for watching, like, subscribe, whatever, and check out my coffee page gallery to see the finished pictures in these videos. Till next time!